Good morning and welcome. You have found us today at the last and final day of our 2020 virtual conference. I have Valerie in the room with me today. She is our speaker. We already have 98 people joining us. This is
Oh
a
my.
really, This is a really exciting topic, but it also can be a very scary topic. So I just want to welcome everyone to the room and just say that we are talking about fire resistant landscaping. The focus is Southern California. However, wherever you're joining us from, drop it in that chat area on the side in the comment section. We're happy to know where you're at. Wherever you are, there is going to be some of this that you can apply to your landscape. And Valerie, just leave your slides where you're at. We can see it perfectly, your opening slide. We have a good morning from Napa. I see John. John has joined us almost every day of our 3-day conference. Welcome. What about North California? John, yeah, some of this can be applied to Northern California. Valerie is joining us from Southern California, and that is her focus area. We're very happy to have her here and share with us some of the things that we can do in our landscape to make it more fire resistant. This is a timely topic, I guess, any time of year now, Valerie, for Californians, which is very sad to
Oh,
say.
definitely. Yes.
However, there's lots of us. I mean, me myself recently have done evacuation. So if this topic is triggering for you at all or makes you sad or uncomfortable, just know you're not alone. If you need to leave and watch this later when you're feeling more up to it, because there's just some raw emotions going around with people that have recently lost their homes, were in fires in the past, completely understand that. So just know that we're here to educate, not scare, and we're very, very happy to have you here. We're at 154 people, Valerie. Oh, we have lots of people logging in saying hi, people from Auburn, Contra Costa County, Riverside. So for those of you joining us for the first time on this 3-day virtual conference, I'm still in my office. I still have a workmate that is my dog. We're like best coworkers now. I got my pumpkins that I harvested in the back, and I am in Northern California in the Sutter Yuba area. So Valerie, where are you joining us from today?
I am joining you from sunny, smoky Monrovia, California, which is in Southern California up against the San Gabriel Mountains.
Well, welcome. I do have some bad air quality today, strangely enough, from fire. So we're all dealing with something, aren't we? All right, we're up to
Yes.
170 people. It's 9:02. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I am Lauren Snowden. I'm the statewide training coordinator who has been leading you through the 3-day 2020 virtual conference for the UC Master Gardener program. I'm happy to say that although we couldn't meet in person at our normal triennial conference, we moved part of it online and we invited the public. Other part, it's free. So we hope you can join us live like you are doing right now or watch us later. And guess what, UC Master Gardeners, you can claim this as continuing education. So pay attention. Don't multitask. All right. I'm going to introduce you to my pal, Valerie. Valerie, take it away, please.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with all of you this morning. We're going to talk about fire-resistant landscaping for those who live in the wildland-urban interface today. In particular, we're focusing on Southern California because that is my strength. The principles, though, for fire-resistant landscaping can be applied to virtually any area in California. If you are interested in getting some location-specific information, I do recommend that you contact your local Master Gardener program for information such as the right plants or set of plants for your area. So to continue on, I just wanted to mention that when Lauren first asked me to give this talk, I thought, oh, no problem. I'm going to pull out my presentation and update it a little bit and move forward with it. And then a couple of weeks later, I had the experience of being in an evacuation zone for the Bobcat fire, which I've never never experienced before. So it adds a another layer of reality and urgency to this topic for me, and I hope I can convey that to you as well. So I did mention that this is a talk about the wildland-urban interface. Some of you might not be familiar with that term. The wildland-urban interface, also known as the WUI or WUI, is just another fancy term for an area where urban and suburban development meet the undeveloped areas with natural vegetation, or to simplify it more, where housing meets the wildlands. So there's a huge portion of Southern California that this applies to. If your house or apartment building abuts or is adjacent to a hilly area or mountainous area or wildland area, you are in the wildland-urban interface. And indeed, this is true of a large portion of California in general. So this topic is very timely and applicable to most of us. So I'll give you a little bit of background on the Safe Landscapes program, of which fire-resistant landscaping is a portion of. This program was put together originally by Dr. Sabrina Drill, who's our UC Natural Resources Advisor for Los Angeles and Ventura counties. And the program basically wants to provide education on improving fire safety and preparedness in the wildland-urban interface to protect your life and your property, as well as protecting the health of the neighboring wildlands. So fire safety for those who live in the wildland-urban interface needs to start from the home out. If your structure is not fire resistant, then no amount of fire resistant landscaping is going to help save your home. You can have the best fire resistant landscape on the planet, and you have a wood shake roof and flammable materials up against your house, and your landscape is not going to save you. So first, you want to start with a fire-resistant structure. Beyond the home, that's where the fire-resistant landscape comes in, and basically you want your landscape to help act as a fuel break for the fire to prevent it from reaching your home.
Hey, Valerie, I think you need to go to the next slide. We're still seeing your sustainable and fire safe slide.
Okay.
Perfect. Right. We can see that. Start with fire resistant structure.
Okay. So, sorry about that.
That's okay. We got
okay. That. So, of course, as I mentioned, we are not here to discuss the fire resistant structures, but please visit the UC Fire Resources website here that has much, much more information on this topic. And I think that'll be dropped in the chat if it has, that link will be dropped in the chat if it hasn't already.
Yes.
One thing that I did want to point out, in addition to having a fire resistant structure, is that embers are one of the main ways that homes ignite. And so what we want to do is provide a landscape that is going to inhibit embers from reaching your home and starting a fire in the first place. Also, one other thing I want to point out about structures is to make sure that your materials that your house is built from are as radiant heat resistant as possible. And I know a lot of us who are living in older homes, there's not a whole lot we can do about it, but keeping your home well maintained as you do your landscaping is key. So I want to talk a little bit about defensible space. Defensible space is the area around your home with up to a minimum of 100 feet away from your home. In some areas, it's a little further out depending on what fire severity zone that you live in. State law requires that you do maintain a defensible space if you're in a fire hazard severity zone. And if you are in one of these zones, you'll know that because the fire authorities will come around once a year and do an annual inspection of your home. So as I said, we have 3 zones in the defensible space zone. We have the immediate zone, which is from 0 to 5 feet out away from your house. Then we have the intermediate zone, which is 5 to 30 feet out. And then the last zone is, or zone 3, is the extended zone, which goes from 30 feet out to 100 feet, or the property line in some cases. Okay, so let's back up to the immediate zone. So before you come up with a plan or design for your landscape, you want to make sure that you're well aware of the differences between these 3 zones. So in the immediate zone, this is the non-combustible zone. Everything in this zone should be non-combustible, obviously. You want to keep this area clear. You don't want flammable materials lying around. Don't keep your firewood stacked up against your home. You shouldn't have a propane tank in areas where the propane is used. You shouldn't have that lying around. Do not have your gardening tools lying up against your house, etc. In Southern California and a lot of other areas in California as well, folks like to use traditional landscaping where they use foundation planting, which is having plants and trees right up against the house structure. And this is bad for many reasons. It creates a direct path for the fuel to encroach into the eaves of your home. The best way to prevent this from happening is to eliminate all foundation plantings. I can't stress that enough. I know we all have foundation plantings, or at least most of us do. Eliminate that and instead use organic mulches and gravel or concrete walkways around your house. This is quite a different take on, as I mentioned, on traditional landscaping, but there is going to be plenty of space in the other 2 zones for plant materials. And later on in my talk, I will be showing you some examples of homes that demonstrate these different zones.
So Valerie, this is Lauren. Just to be clear, that immediate zone, is that red line, like right
Yes,
up
it
against the
is.
house?
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes,
right.
The red line is the immediate zone, 0 to 5 feet away from the house.
I've seen so many stacks of firewood against people's houses because it's so convenient, but not there. Okay.
Yes.
Move
Exactly.
it away.
All right. The next zone, as we mentioned, is the intermediate zone, which is the orangish yellow line. And this is an area where you can begin to introduce plant materials in here. A lot of people have trees in this area. If you choose to put trees in this area, make sure that they are trimmed a minimum of 10 feet away from the edge of the tree foliage to the house. You don't want them overhanging onto your roof. This will create a direct path of fire onto your roof. Also, dead plant material is more likely to drop onto your roof and create a pile of fuel for a fire or for an ember to fly onto your roof. Also in this area, it's okay to have occasional well-spaced shrubs. You can see in the back here where there are sections of shrubs that are have a little bit of space in between them instead of being one thick wall of shrubbery right here, which is very common if you have a hedge. You'll see that a lot in traditional landscaping. One way to introduce some visual interest into this area is to use boulders or stone patios or seat walls. Low seat walls out of concrete or stone is also a good idea in this area. Excuse me. If you prefer to have two trees together, that's fine. Treat it as one clump of plant material and make sure that that section is at least 10 feet away from the next tree or shrubbery grouping. When you have trees in a fire-resistant landscape area, we always want to make sure that they're pruned up or limbed up at least 6 feet in order to reduce fuel ladders. A vertical fuel ladder is just, for instance, when you've got a shrub that is the same height as your lowest branch, and that creates a uninterrupted path for fire to move through. One of the foundation principles of fire-resistant landscaping is, of course, maintenance. This area is often called the lean, mean, and green zone, meaning you want to keep your plants well pruned and well maintained and well irrigated. Okay, moving on to the extended zone. For the extended zone, you can have a few more trees and shrubbery. If you're in a wildland area, you might have a lot of native plants in this area. Make sure that you do keep everything well irrigated and well pruned in this zone also, and continue to keep groupings, plant groupings or tree groupings at least 10 feet apart from each other. All right, so I just wanted to show you a side view of what this looks like when folks don't practice fire-safe landscaping. Ember, there's 3 ways that a home can burn. You can have embers flying from the fire, and the fire could be up to a mile away. Embers will travel great distances and land on your roof if you've got some dead plant material or a tree adjacent to your structure. The embers are most likely to catch the tree and or the roof on fire. The second way is direct flame contact, where you may have a tree or some other flammable material right next to the siding of your house, and that is a direct path for fire to get into your house. Another way that folks don't often think about for homes to ignite is this radiant energy. If you've got a whole grouping of trees or shrubbery over here that's intensely burning, it may get so hot that the radiant energy from the burn causes your house to combust or ignite. So these three illustrations explain specifically why we want to practice fire-resistant landscaping.
Valerie, I'm going to interrupt you for a second for a
Yes.
question. I think it's timely in here. While the spacing of plantings sound great, most lots aren't large enough. In many cities and towns, there would be no trees or large bushes at all. And that's traditional landscape thoughts. So I know the Master Gardener program is really into right plant, right place. This kind of sounds like the same thing. So how would you answer a question like this where we're moving away from traditional and doing groupings?
Well, I would say that yes, the way a lot of prior thought is, it almost seems like it's to fit as many trees onto your property, into your backyard or your front yard as you possibly can to get a lush grouping of trees. But the reality of it is that this is going to make your structure more prone to fire. It requires a new way of thinking about landscaping, and it's really necessary to maintain distance between plants and trees. I'll go into that a little bit more in a moment, but yes, it is difficult to think about this, and we don't expect you to go and spend $10,000 or $20,000 immediately and fix your entire yard. The best thing that you can do first off is to get in there and maintain everything and clean dead plant material out of your plants and trees, and prune and keep everything well watered, and any litter that you have laying, tree litter, plant litter, leaf litter on the ground. That's most important, is maintenance.
Yeah, we have a comment that talks about how a lot of rural people just throw stuff in piles and leave it. So it's almost like a fuel load pile hanging out on their side yard or close to the house.
Exactly. If we want to keep our homes from igniting, we need to start following these principles, and we need to do it. Everyone needs to be on board with this, ideally. If you're in an area, in a traditional neighborhood, as the viewer had mentioned, you may have a great fire-resistant landscape, but if your neighbor is not on board and has a forest thicket in their backyard, it's not going to work as well, obviously. Yeah. So our purpose is to educate as many people as possible and get the word out so that everyone does come around to this way of thinking, because wildfire is virtually a way of life nowadays in California.
Yes. So
on that note, this is just showing a side view of how these breaks in the fuel are going to help prevent the fire from reaching your home, because it's not one solid line of fuel as it is in the upper illustration. Okay, so what exactly is fire-resistant landscaping? So the way we've broken it down is it's an appropriate landscape layout following the defensible space principles of the 3 zone areas, the immediate, intermediate, and extended zone, and utilizing fire-resistant plants, non-combustible hardscape as fuel breaks, and irrigation. And when we say fire-resistant plants, I'm not talking about just specific plants that have fire-resistant characteristics, but also that key key portion of maintenance, maintaining and pruning your plants so that they look great, they look lush, and they're less likely to have dead material that is fuel for a fire. Okay, so let's go over the first topic, which is fire-resistant plants. Everybody wants a fire-resistant plant list, and we don't really condone fire-resistant plants because no plant is completely fire resistant or completely fire safe. And when I say fire resistant, or I might interchange that with fire safe, I'm meaning the same thing, because there is no fire safe plant, and plants, a specific plant is not going to save your house from being burned. But that being said, if you're looking for plants to use, it would be better for you to look for plants when you're out doing your landscape shopping that have these characteristics than to purchase plants that have more flammable characteristics. So let's go over those quickly. First, you want to make sure that you look for a plant that stores water in its leaves or stems, such as a succulent. That's a prime example. Succulents are very popular right now. There are many other choices though besides succulents. You want to look for plants that don't have a lot of dead or fine material that they produce. Some plants are very high producers of dead material, and we'll go over more of that when I do, show some examples of that. A fire-resistant plant will also have extensive deep-rooted systems. This is key also after the fire for controlling erosion. If your plants are deep-rooted, they're going to hold that soil to help prevent the massive mudslides that we often see following a wildfire in many areas. You want to look for plants that maintain a high moisture content with not a whole lot of watering. So what water that they do get, they hold. We want to look for plants that are slow growing plants and require little maintenance. Another good characteristic to look for is low growing plants that are more ground hugging, or such as you have a lot of, and one example is thyme is a low growing plant. Also, another characteristic is an open, loose branching form that cuts down the volume of the plant material. This is also can be very important, is you don't want plants with a lot of volatile oils in them or resins. One plant that a lot of people like, I know I like, is rosemary. Well, that is contains a lot of volatile oils and resins. So you might not want to have that in your intermediate zone. You might want to keep that out further away from the house. This last one, you want to look for plants that are not invasive. That's very key, because invasive plants tend to take over an area and produce a solid thicket of shrubbery. So stay away from invasive plants. We'll talk a little bit more about why we don't want to use those. in our landscaping, residential landscaping.
Valerie,
Okay.
Valerie, all I can think of is all the juniper bushes that were planted like in the 70s now with high resin plant, tight foliage, and a lot of stuff that drops underneath. Like it's totally just a fuel load of fire right there. It's like the worst example of a plant.
It is. I lived in a house not too long ago that had a hedge surrounding the entire small front yard that was all juniper. Which is not a good thing. Just another thing, this is a natural area and it's the plant native to it, but in the Bobcat fire, in the Antelope Valley side of the Bobcat fire, there's an area called Juniper Hills, which is, that's the plant that's native to that area, but many of the homes did go up in flames in that area, and I would not be surprised if the natural volatile plants had something to do with that. So let's go back to some plant examples. I'll just give you some examples. Again, if these are not well maintained, they're not going to help you a whole lot. Coral bells is a California native, a beautiful California native, comes in a variety of colors and forms, but it does have an open branching habit and large, widely spaced leaves. So it doesn't produce a lot of fine organic material and which drops off when it's dead. So that's a good thing. It does grow pretty slowly and it doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance. Okay, I think we're all familiar with the coast live oak, the Quercus agrifolia. The coast live oak is another plant that is naturally thought of as being very fire resistant. If it does catch on fire, it doesn't usually burn completely. Traditionally, now with the firestorms that we have, that's not necessarily the case, but this, if well maintained, this is this can be a very fire resistant tree. Okay, there we go. Next slide. The Catalina cherry is another Southern California native that has an extensive root system, which is good for controlling erosion. And this does maintain a high moisture content. So this is actually a drought tolerant tree, but it still holds in what moisture it does or irrigation it does receive. It still holds on to that moisture, and it does grow pretty slowly. And another ground cover, that was the word I was trying to think of a few slides back. A ground cover, which is a low-lying plant, is this California native, the Oregon grape or the barberry. And this is a beautiful plant. I used to have this planted a lot in my yard. It has a lot of color because the berries are blue, the flowers on it, as you can see, are yellow, and the leaves turn red in the fall. It doesn't completely turn red, but a lot of the leaves do, and it's just a beautiful plant year-round to have. And again, this maintains a high moisture content with not a lot of watering, and it does grow slowly and doesn't require much maintenance.
I just wrote that one down, so I'll check it later to see if it grows in my zone.
Very
excited. Thank you.
It's and the Oregon grape, it covers, so you know by the name that it covers quite a lot of California that it should be able to grow in. Okay, here's a few non-natives that you can find in the local nurseries here in Southern California. Mexican bird of paradise is another very colorful and beautiful shrub that maintains an open branching habit, and it's drought tolerant and doesn't produce very much litter at all. Another one that a lot of us are familiar with is the aloes. Most aloes are very beautiful, slow growing, and they don't produce much fine material or litter at all. And they obviously store water in their stems. That's one way that you can tell if they are needing to be irrigated, is their leaves and stems start looking a little emaciated. So that is a great plant to have, though, in your yard here in Southern California. Another is the crepe myrtle, which in some neighborhoods in Southern California, you see this all over the place. They come in a wide variety of colors. This plant can be pruned to be a large shrub or a small tree, and it does have a loose branching habit. So, and does not require a lot of water. It's, I think that this is one of the more beautiful flowering plants. These usually flower in mid to late summer, surprisingly. So that's a great plant to have. Again, all plants need to be well maintained and irrigated to prevent fuel buildup. And make sure that you are always picking up what litter there is from your plants. Don't leave it, as Lauren mentioned, don't pile it up. I'm guilty of this too. Don't pile up your leaves and leave it for 2 weeks before you get it into the recycling bin or the compost bin.
Valerie, you got people in the comments like asking, where do I buy this? Where do I buy this? Go to your local nursery.
If you're from Southern California, these are very easy to find. If you're up in Northern California, you might have a more difficult time, but that is what your Master Gardener program is. Please contact your local Master Gardener program, and they can certainly help you out. If they can't find this plant for you, I'm sure they can find a substitute that's just as nice or beautiful as these. These are just examples, but there are so many more out there, and I tried to cover plants that are easily obtainable. Yeah. In the nursery industry here. So, okay, how are we doing for time, Lauren?
We're a little over halfway through. You got about 20 minutes.
Okay, all right. Let's cover flammable plants. As I mentioned before, characteristics of flammable plants: volatile substances, a lot of dead material. The plant produces a lot of litter. You see lots of stuff or leaf litter around the base of these types of plants, or the bark peels off constantly, traits like that. This is Shamus. This is a California native. If you can avoid having this in your yard or on your property, I would do so. Sometimes if you have a larger property, it's going to be difficult to do that, especially without, you might want it there for habitat reasons, but if you can, keep this one out of your yard or property. As it says here, it's a very flammable plant. It's got a lot of resins and oils in it. The low fuel moisture during summer and fall and the dead material buildup create a high fire susceptibility here. So this plant will burn, and it will transfer that fire easily to another plant on its way closer and closer to your home. So that's a no. Another one is red shanks, which is also a California native. Same thing. You want to avoid this plant if you can. There's a lot of peeling bark on this plant. And again, it has flammable oils. It contains flammable oils. Another name for this plant is ribbonwood because of the peeling ribbons of bark. This is an interesting feature, but this is better out in the wildlands and not in your backyard. So if you want to go look at these plants, which are, both of these are very lovely, but go look at them out in the wildlands. Okay, another one. I love this plant, the buckwheat. That's one of my favorite plants, but it's highly flammable. It produces a lot of very fine fuel. It's beautiful in the summer, late summer, when actually mid to late summer, I've seen it bloom, but it's highly flammable. So keep that out of your yard if possible. Okay, so we've got two non-natives here, the pampas grass and the blue gum eucalyptus. There's a lot of thatch that is created. These are pampas grass is very attractive plant, but you can see down here the dense thicket that it forms if there are a lot of these plants one right next to each other, which people like to do. Very heavy biomass there. It's extremely flammable and it spreads like crazy. This is a majorly invasive plant in Southern California. This is one of the plants that the Plant Right organization is trying to get out of the nursery trade. The last one here, as I mentioned, is blue gum eucalyptus. Quite obviously, there is a peeling bark factor, which is very interesting, but again, lots of bark litter, lots of leaf and flower litter as well. These little white parts right here are the flower, and it just drops an enormous amount of litter.
I call those trees dirty trees because no matter what you do, you clean them up and they're dirty underneath immediately.
Exactly.
It's all year.
Exactly.
It's just all the time. It's so much maintenance. I'm not into that, folks. Not doing it.
Yeah, and we're all happy to have as little maintenance as possible.
Yeah.
So no reason that you want to have this in your yard. If you have it in your yard already, you may want to consider cutting it down. I know that a lot of people want to keep these around because habitat for birds, but you can always replace the tree with another less flammable tree. Okay, on to the next slide. I just wanted to say a little bit. I know I mentioned invasive plants, and you may not know exactly what an invasive, you've probably heard the word invasive plant, but you're not quite sure what that means. So the technical term is that an invasive species is defined as a species that is non-native to the ecosystem and whose introduction causes economic or environmental harm. So originally, invasive plants were tagged as such because of the harm, the economic harm to agricultural crops. But from there, they've broadened the term to include environmental harm because of the damage that it does to the wildland. It takes over natural habitat. It can cause post-fire type conversion. For instance, the deserts in Southern California prior to invasion of exotic grasses never, I can't say never, but rarely had wildfires. But now, because of the invasion of these exotic grasses, their wildfires are becoming a common thing in the desert areas. Invasive plants can increase risk posed by wildfire by increasing the fuel load because they're so aggressive and they adapt well to the environment. That's why they're invasive, because they have characteristics that like the Southern California environment. A lot of people think that they can do the bare earth or scorching. Oh, I'm just going to clean everything off my property, every plant off of my property. That's not a good idea either, because it clears the way for invasive plants to come in, because they're aggressive plants and they can take over your property very easily if you have a area that you have cut down to the bare earth. Okay, also the last thing here, invasive plants can spread to wildland areas if they escape from a fire-safe landscape. So do not include invasive plants in your fire-safe landscape. That's where the residents come in. If we can keep these plants out of the nursery trade or out of the nursery stock, then they're less likely to invade into the wildland areas. Two places you can get more information about invasive plants and alternatives to invasive plants is the Calif website, which I think the link will be dropped into the chat. Calif stands for California Invasive Plant Council. They offer a lot of resources. And also the Plant Right website. We do, the Master Gardener program across California does a lot of work with the Plant Right folks. They work directly with the industries, the horticultural industry and the nursery industry to remove invasive plants from the nursery trade.
Valerie, I would like to mention that invasive plants in one zone are not invasive in another.
Exactly.
So just because it's available in Texas doesn't mean you should plant it in California, because it may love being in California so much that it's just going to take over and ruin wildlife habitats for birds, small animals. I remember Angel Island in the San Francisco Bay actually went through a whole thing where they removed all invasive plants, and like it looked horrible for a while, right? Because they removed a lot of stuff, but they were really trying to remove that type of thing. So once it gets in, it's hard to get out. So just because you can get it in the state next door doesn't mean you should bring it back. So everyone check out and make sure that you're not bringing in something you shouldn't.
That's so true, Lauren. Thanks for pointing that out. It all goes back to the right plant for the right place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which it requires some research and some knowledge, and that's why we have all these things at our fingertips, right?
Yes, and if you're not sure, ask a master gardener.
There you go.
So, all right. Also, your local lead fire agency can have a lot of information on plants that they feel are undesirable or invasive in a specific area. So check them out as well. They often have a lot of this information on their websites. Okay, pruning. I've talked a lot about making sure that you prune up your large shrubs to keep them from creating fire ladders up into your trees, and also pruning your trees up, limbing them up to at least 6 feet. Here's a manzanita before and after. You can see the big difference. When you prune them up, the manzanita actually becomes even more beautiful because you can see the beautiful bark. So how do you prune correctly? This might require, again, a little bit of research if you've never done pruning before, or you can hire somebody to do your pruning. Basically, you want to remove all dead material and dead branches from a shrub or a tree. And the best thing to do is hand prune the inside branches to reduce a flush of growth, because that growth is creating, that quick flush of growth is going to create a lot more fuel. And hedge, again, if you hedge or shear a shrub, that results in weak, fast growth as well and produces a lot more fuel. So you want to try to avoid that. You can also try pruning plants over a 3-year cycle if you're concerned about pruning your tree or shrub too severely. You might want to prune it like prune 1/3 of it 1 year, and then the next year prune it a little bit more, and the 3rd year prune it a little bit more, instead of doing it every several years, so that you ease into it. That might help maintain some of the habitat for the wildlife on your property. Okay, maintenance. Can't say that enough. Keep the litter off the ground. Mulch your plants. That's going to reduce the amount of irrigation required. It also keeps the soil cool, which reduces the irrigation evaporation. Make sure that you do judicious pruning, and any grasses that you have, keep them mowed down or mowed short, and water appropriately. That means there's a fine line between watering not enough and watering to keep the plant alive, or watering too much. And again, that takes a little bit of research. All of this is going to require a little bit of research and a little bit of experimentation. And another thing I wanted to say is each property is unique and different. So what might work on one property is not necessarily going to work for your property, but just remember to maintain your plants.
Valerie, we had a question earlier that I think is really appropriate right now. What about using leaf litter as a natural mulch in the extended space, or not at all?
I think it can be appropriate in certain circumstances. For instance, the coast live oak it's often recommended to keep. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background.
You're forgiven.
He's upset because I locked him out of the room here. So the coast live oak, often it's recommended to leave the leaves on the ground. I think if you just, it's hard to say. I'm not really sure. That's I do it, and I probably shouldn't do it, but it is a good mulch for certain plants that are in the same habitat as the oak, but that might require a little bit more research. There's a resource on mulch and fire that is put out by the Nevada Extension Office. Do you know which publication I'm talking about, Lauren?
I'll go look for it and try and pull it, and we'll see if we can get that.
Okay, I think Glenn Nader may have worked on it with the one of the advisors from Nevada Extension Office.
All right, because we have a lot of questions like, does bark mulch create a fire problem? Question mark.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and it does in its own way.
Yes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's not my field of expertise. So I would definitely, this is a highly regarded publication. So I would definitely refer and defer to what it says in this publication.
Thank you.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I was going to talk a little bit more about mulch. 2 to 3 inches deep is ideal. Everybody always wants to know, well, how much mulch should I put on the ground? Let's keep it at between 2 to 3 inches for organic mulches. More than 4 or 5 inches, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about mulch causing smoldering ground fires. If you've got a really thick layer of mulch, that's not such a good idea, because yes, it can contribute to smoldering ground fires. And there's also different types of mulch. There is the, various different types of wood mulches. gravel is considered an inorganic mulch. So that is great for different applications, as I mentioned, around the in the immediate zone of your defensible space around your house or other structures. Gravel is a great thing to have because it's inorganic. It's not going to catch fire. This is a cocoa mulch. A lot of people like to use this as a ground cover also, but if you have plants or wildlife, which you probably do if you're in the wildland-urban interface, this can be toxic to animals. So be aware of that. You might want to avoid that. Then there are the wood mulches. Here's a redwood mulch. The thing about choosing a mulch, a wood mulch, is that you want to stay away from the very fine, they call it gorilla mulch, I think, or shredded mulch, because that can tend to easily ignite from an ember, and because it's so light, it can get caught up in the wind and fly off and land on your roof or in leaf litter somewhere on the ground and work its way up into onto the structure. So also the larger pieces, you don't want to get really super large because they tend to create air pockets that can fuel a smoldering fire as well. So the medium-sized pieces seem to work best. But again, that publication that I was referring to has more information on that. Okay, so now we're going to head into the third aspect of fire-resistant landscaping, which is the irrigation. We have just supposedly come up off of a major drought. Some people say we're still in the drought, depending on the area that you live in. But a good defensible space has an efficient irrigation system, and this can be, it's necessary in order to keep your plants healthy and less likely to ignite. If you use a manual or an automatic irrigation system, it doesn't matter. It's what you're comfortable with and what works most efficiently for your yard. There's always a question of should I use overhead or drip? What's better? It depends. Again, it depends on the circumstances, what plants you have. If you have a vegetable garden, you may prefer to use a drip irrigation system. The main thing, again, just like your plants, you have to maintain your irrigation system. I would monthly check for broken heads and leaking lines. This will cut down on the efficiency. You'll have really dry areas and then soggy areas. And the sogginess is not good for your plants. And of course, your plants are going to die if you have the dry areas and create fuel for a potential fire. Make sure that you water during the cool of the day. That leads to less water evaporation. Water your plants only as needed. Most people overwater their plants. Your plants can get by and maintain their healthiness by cutting back on the water. So really pay attention to how your plants look and let that be your guide as to how much water you actually apply to your plants. Another one, do not overspray and water the sidewalk or your driveway or the street even. The sidewalk, the driveway, and the street are not going to benefit from you watering them, so please don't do that. Let's be as water conservation minded as possible.
Valerie, that is a great reminder. We just hit the hour mark, so I'm available to stay on for another 15-20 minutes. So I know that there's some people that have to go. Just know that this is recorded, so it is here for you in the future on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. But Valerie, please go ahead.
Okay, great. I'm just going to wrap up the irrigation, and then we'll just walk through a few examples quickly and go from there. One thing I wanted to say is that people say, well, natives do not need water during the summer months. Well, that is maybe true out in the wildlands, but on your property, you want to make sure that you give them enough water to keep them green during the dry summer months, because remember, this is your defensible space zone, and we need your plants to be green in the defensible space zone. The term for that when they dry out and when natives dry out in the summer is summer dormant. We want to avoid that stage of plants as much as possible when it's on your property or in your yard. Okay, and the final part is, I just wanted to mention drip irrigation again might be good for if you are located in a windy area. If your property is located in a windy area, this does use a lot less water, so this might be a great alternative for you. Again, monitor, or I may not have mentioned this, but coyotes, bunnies, squirrels, a lot of wildlife loves to chew on the tubing for drip irrigation. So again, monitor that, maintain your irrigation. Just wanted to point out that that's a real thing.
Yes, I can attest to watering several bunnies that way. Not on purpose.
Oh yes, yeah. I don't know what it is. I even had a cat that liked to chew on plastic, so
Oh, gosh.
I don't know what it is about rubber and poly and all of that, but must taste good to some of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to continue into, I apologize. I said we were going to go straight to examples, but let's cover the hardscaping real quickly. Hardscaping can be your best friend during in creating your defensible space. One thing though that a lot of us use is wood fencing, and these are not going to work well in your defensible zone, in your defensible space zone, if you have them adjacent to your home or your structure. They just create a fire pathway directly into your home. This lovely little scenario here, I'm sure, is common with a lot of you in your work area of your backyard. This is actually my house. Bad, bad, bad. The wood fence goes straight into the structure, straight to the structure. If the fence caught on fire, it would create a fire here and go straight up underneath the eaves and catch the roof on fire. Also, a lot of this equipment has wood handles, and what happens, wood burns, same thing, it will go, the fire will carry straight up into the eaves. So if at all possible, replace, at least, if not all of your fencing, if you at least replace the portion that is adjacent to the home with another type of inorganic or non-combustible material. And we'll get into that right away here. Non-combustible materials would be, for example, stone materials, aluminum fencing. Here's another example of stone. These are all good options. A stone fence can be very expensive, but there are quite a few different well-designed options for metal or aluminum fencing and gates nowadays. Also, another thing, you may think that you're looking at a wood fence a lot of times, but they're actually made out of concrete or other non-combustible materials. So these might be an option if you just have to have that wood look. Another few examples of low seat walls, fencing, and metal fences. I particularly like this if this is away from the house because of the potential for vegetable vining plants, and like cucumbers or loofahs or something like that can grow into this fencing. Okay, for patios and paths, especially paths, are a great way to break up fuel loads in your landscaping. You might have clumps of plantings on one side of the path and clumps of plantings on the other side, and the non-combustible path is going to interrupt the flow of fire there. So especially a ground fire, this would work really well. One thing, as somebody who is aging more rapidly than they want to, make sure that you maintain any of these pathways. If they start bulging up because roots are growing under them, please maintain them, because otherwise they become a trip hazard. All of these are permeable paving. They are not cemented in. So this also aids in the groundwater recharge. I just wanted to point that out, and helps reduce erosion by allowing the water to percolate down into the ground. Lots of choices for stone and gravel and inorganic mulch. So don't feel like, oh, it's not going to look very good because it's just plain old gravel. There are all sorts of colors, shapes, and sizes. So
and Valerie, there's really nothing that says that you can't have a gravel pathway with some mulch beside it and then another breakup of gravel and hardscape. It helps stop that, that fire load. So lots of textures, colors, smells, sights, perfect.
Exactly. Okay, landscaping with stone or boulders is also creates a lot of visual interest. You can create a dry stream bed look. Again, just as Lauren pointed out, here we've got organic mulch right next to the inorganic mulch. So this dry stream bed look here is going to interrupt a path of fire here. And just wanted to point out, see how this loose branching form here, small, well-pruned tree, still creates visual interest, is a beautiful tree, but is less likely to catch fire.
I mean, although this is non-traditional, it's beautiful looking still. So
yes, exactly. Okay, on to pools and ponds. These also can act as fuel breaks to help interrupt the fire, or at least at the very minimum, we want to slow down the fire. So if you have an existing pool, or if you're planning to put a pool in your yard, you may, knowing that it can help to interrupt the flow of an oncoming, or the speed of an oncoming fire, it may help you to try and decide where to place or locate your pool on your property or area. A lot of areas require pools with pumps that the firefighters can use the water source to help with the fire. One thing, a lot of areas, more rural areas, properties contain ponds. Please make sure that you have a way to keep your water moving constantly, because still water breeds mosquitoes. And that's another aside of the Safe Landscapes program in general, is that if you have still water laying anywhere on your property, whether it's in a bucket or it's in a pond or it pools in a clayey area, you want to make sure that that water drains or gets emptied out within 48 to 72 hours because of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are nasty, and they seem to be getting worse and worse every year. Okay.
Oh, wow.
This, of course, you can just look at that and see that that is a disaster waiting to happen. Wherever embers fall on this, it's going to ignite. It's worse that the plant, this is, I can't tell exactly what kind of plant that is, but it's growing out from underneath this not well-maintained wood deck with the lattice enclosure. Not good. This is a recipe for disaster here. So again, maintenance is what is key. Rather, there are plenty of non-combustible materials that you can use for decks. And there are actually certain wood species that are allowed per the California Building Code, which you would need to check into. I think I've got it here. Ipe, redwood, cedar, all three of those are code compliant for decking if they're a minimum of 2 inches thick. And contrary to what you might think, not all composite decks are fire resistant, but there is a link for wildland interface building products to the state building department, or the Office of Safety and Fire Management, I think that is. If that link is dropped into the chat, you can find a lot of information on approved hardscape materials.
It has been dropped.
Great. All right, moving on here. Trellises and arbors. We all love trellises and arbors. It gives us a respite from the hot summer sun. It's a great place to grow vining plants. And my favorite is vining vegetables or loofahs. I love loofahs. So the thing though is that you want, if possible, make it out of non-combustible materials such as concrete or metal. I would definitely recommend keeping trellises and arbors as far away from your house as possible. Keep it out in the extended area if possible, along with play structures. That's another thing that should be as far away from as possible from your house, especially if they are wood structures, wood play structures. If they're metal, of course, closer in is fine. Here's an example of a wood look trellis, which is actually a concrete structure.
Oh, I would never have guessed.
Yes, this is actually at the Huntington Gardens in San Marino near Pasadena.
It's like art.
Yeah, again, since you have vining plants on these trellises most of the time, make sure that you keep them away from the house. And finally, I just wanted to show a few well-designed fire-resistant landscapes. A lot of them you can tell are low-profile plants. They'll have some specimen trees there. There are usually not a lot of plants against the house, and these properties are using efficient irrigation there and making sure that the plants that they use are drought tolerant. Again, here's a nice design of hardscape, low-lying plants.
I see fleshy leaves.
Yes. Fleshy leaves here that hold a lot of water, so less apt to burn. This is another more serene look, although I do see this lovely espaliered plant against the house, which occurs in several places. That would be something that you would want to remove to make it a lot more fire resistant here. But a lot of low-lying, well-irrigated, well-maintained plants. And the concrete area here creates a path of a fuel break for oncoming fire and interrupts the fire. I think we're heading towards being almost finished here. This house is in La Cañada, and it is this house right here from the overhead shot. During the station fire, you can see actually how close the fire did come to this house. I just wanted to point out that some of the fire resistant landscaping principles that were used, they have these inorganic, non-combustible fencing, low-lying fencing, drought-tolerant plants, well-spaced, and small, loose branching trees here.
And it still looks good.
Exactly. I think that was immediately after the fire, so it's kind of looking air quality, poor air quality, but
attractive nonetheless.
Yes. Here's another one, using the lawn sort of as a fire break, which if the lawn is well maintained and irrigated, not overly irrigated, but irrigated to maintain health, it is also helpful as a fuel break. And then the concrete paths as well, concrete and stone paths here. And this low stone wall also acts as a fuel break to interrupt the flow of fire. If you're not big on the very manicured look, this is another type of lawn. No mowing is required here. If this is well maintained and irrigated to be healthy, it can also act as an element that will slow an oncoming fire. This is, some people may feel that this is a sparse looking landscape, but I think it has a beauty all of its own. This is, you can see this often in Southern California, very fire resistant.
Hey, Valerie, we have a question about your last slide that you did, that you were talking about the one more before, that grass, that non-manicured grass. Do you know what that low mounding grass was?
You're talking about this one here?
Yeah, that one.
I am not sure if it's the University of California, UC Verde grass, or if it's a buffalo grass. There are I
was gonna say, I thought it might be buffalo grass when I saw it. That's when my brain popped in.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure. I was going to go knock on their door and ask them, but I didn't.
You're that weird person, huh?
Couldn't get up the courage at that time, so I'm not quite sure. But
well, thanks for snagging the photo. It looks great.
I like this look a lot. So
great, thank you.
Yeah. Check both of those. I mean, either one is a great alternative. There's also Achillea milfolium, which I can't think of the common name right now, is also a grass alternative if you're looking for something other than the traditional.
I can't type that in the chat. I don't know how to spell that.
Somebody's got a yarrow. It's yarrow.
Yarrow grass?
Yeah, it's I don't know that it's an actual grass, but I have seen it used as a lawn in the application as a lawn
Okay.
before.
All right.
And it can be mowed. Okay, so the final example here is, this is sort of a dry stream bed look, right up against the hills there. This is a larger property, of course. This is actually a say it for me, like an arboretum type
Like a
property.
demonstration garden.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there are quite a few low shrubs, smaller shrubs, well spaced and very colorful. The stream again acts as the fuel break, and a lot of these plants are used because they have the deep rooted structures, and that is going to help prevent erosion in case there is a fire. It will cut down on a lot of the mudslides or landslides that so often take place after a large wildfire.
We have Derek coming. That is so beautiful, and I do agree, Derek. I think it is very beautiful and very interesting. All the different shapes, sizes, heights.
Right,
So yeah, and I can see how it still follows that fire landscape
right,
safety rules that you put out, like, you know, spacing, grouping, and then it also takes into account texture and color and still basics of
exactly.
gardening that people love and landscaping, but also takes into account that whole other layer you're trying to add in for safety.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Beauty can be safe.
Oh, look at you. Bumper sticker.
Okay, so just to wrap it up, we do have a website for the Safe Landscapes program. So that, I think, Lauren, you probably already had that dropped into the chat.
We're doing it now. Thank you.
Okay, and then this is a great video on wildfire exposures and the interactions between landscaping and the built environment. This is done by Yana, one of the fire experts. I can't pronounce Yana's last name.
Balakovich.
Thank you.
You're
Up in
welcome.
Northern California, she is so informative, and she ties the built environment in with the landscaping beautifully and gives so many examples, and goes to homes immediately after the fire and shows you what worked and what didn't work and what could be improved upon. So I would highly recommend that. And the last one is the UC Marin Master Gardeners Fire Smart Landscaping website. And they have a lovely video narrated by Faye Mark. And that is definitely worth watching. And I wanted to put these two in for those of you who are in Northern California, so that you can visualize with the more common landscape plants that you're going to encounter up in Northern California. So
Great.
I hope this has been helpful to all of you. So
Well,
thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Valerie. I'm going to remove this from the screen, but people, don't worry. It is in the chat. All of this lovely information, all these links are there so that you can copy and paste them down onto a Word document, a notepad, whatever you need to do. Save them in your favorites. Valerie, I know we went over time, but guess what? Still getting a job well done. No one's complaining that you went over time.
Oh, well,
I'm
that
not
is good.
complaining either. We have people learning so much from you, just saying thank you and terrific. Hopefully you can see it on your screen. If you minimize your PowerPoint, you can probably see those popping up.
Okay, that would be great.
Want to give you some kudos. We have a thank you for Mariposa. See, even us Northern California folks, Valerie, are getting something out of it. I know that I saw a few mistakes I was already making.
I'm guilty too. So
yeah,
we all have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you know what?
You know?
Truly, you kept saying the word maintenance, and all I could think of is we're all going to be outside when the weather's nice, or like walking around our yards making a list going, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Exactly. And
And
the one other thing I wanted to point out is just take it in small steps. Don't
yeah.
overwhelm yourself and try to do it all at one time.
So there's whole other classes on home hardening. There's whole
Yes.
classes on irrigation. This, you guys, don't be overwhelmed. This is just a portion of it. Fire safe landscaping, like Valerie said, starts close at the home. I mean, I even saw in one of the pictures, like they don't have wicker furniture on their patio. Like, you guys, when you're making the choice to change out your patio
Exactly.
furniture, wicker looks great. Don't get the flammable stuff. Look at stuff with a different light, a fire safe aspect to it. Same with like cushions. Take them inside when not in use. I mean,
Exactly.
simple
Yeah.
weird things we don't think of. I do remember from one of my master gardener trainings that I went to, they talked about it was a great house that was hardened, had great landscape, but they left a broom on the deck,
Mm,
and
mm.
the broom got caught fire because it was an easily flammable thing. So, I
That's
mean,
all
truly,
it takes.
just moving your tools and putting them back where they belong in the garage, away from
Hmm.
outside heat and stuff that can get to it. So, you guys, thank you to Valerie. We have even
Thank you.
more helpful and great comments coming in. This
Hi,
Carol, this
Carol.
dog is
She used to be a
adorable.
LA County Master Gardener.
Oh gosh, look at you. Your umbrellas are first things to go in. See, don't
Yes.
leave stuff on your porch,
Don't
people.
even think about that, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah. I love it. Can we see taking out number of plants? Yeah. It's you're just gonna start looking at stuff differently, slowly changing things out. And here is a great way to end this. Everyone stay safe. We have people all over the state right now dealing with this, and
Yes,
it's truly traumatic. It's a
it
loss
is.
of life, businesses, homes, memories. Um, and especially during a pandemic, leaving your home, your safe space where you thought, you were safe. And it's just, this is one way to help create some safety for yourself and your neighbors and getting people involved in this. So Valerie, thank you so much. Even though we're Southern California focused, there's UC Master Gardeners all over the state of California. We have someone saying thank you from Oakland. Guess what? This is the day 3 of our 3-day conference. We only have 2 more sessions left. Valerie, thanks for kicking us off for their 9 a.m. Our next one's at noon, you guys. And guess what? We plan to talk about food around noon. So we're going to talk
Oh, good.
preserving your harvest, and
All
you can have
right.
like a little growly tummy or sit in the back and eat your food and watch us while we talk about preserving your garden harvest. We're going to try and cover it all, from canning, drying, and everyone's favorite fermentation, because I'm all about that sauerkraut. I don't know
Yes.
why. Um, if you haven't already, you can totally follow us on Facebook and catch us on YouTube and also on Twitter. We are so thankful to have Valerie with us today. Valerie, I'm going to take you and I out of the room, but thank you so much for being with us. And
Thank you, Lauren.
we just hit an hour and a half. Valerie,
Ah,
congratulations. So much information. All right, I'll take
thank
us on
you.
out.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
everyone.